who has been with us throughout this journey. She is the director, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, Rule of Law Program for Sub-Saharan Africa. We have our host, Dr. Jane Waduta, who is the Dean, Strathmore University Law School. We're very happy that you could make time to be with us. I also see some of my friends and Professor Milen, thank you for coming always. Again, all of you, thank you very much. We will, as the program goes, get to know each other. We hope that this is going to be enjoyable. I can assure you it's the best use of your Tuesday evening on the 15th April of 2025. And the activity you are engaged in is one groundbreaking in the sense that we are now looking at different things, but also secondly, the conversation is happening when the world is currently negotiating the possibility of having a plastic treaty, a treaty that specifically tries to address the menace that plastic pollution is. You are highly honored again to be here. As discussions go ahead, you will be part of the journey, and I'm very excited that we could make it today. To start off with the program, I would want to give some opening remarks, or would have to give some opening remarks. I'm looking for Tabitha, just in case you are lost and you have no idea where to go. Tabitha, who has been sending a lot of emails to many of you, is standing at behind. You could just wave. She's been very useful. She's the hands-on skill behind this event, as well as Marianne. Marianne, if you could please rise and raise your... So in case you want to ask any of the questions around Strathmore or around this event, please feel free to contact me or to reach out to me, Marianne, or Tabitha. I also see my colleagues from the law school in case anyone has any questions around Strathmore. Led by Dr. Osiemo, Dr. Kwenjera here, and Dr. Kariuki, we are grateful. On to the opening remarks. I wish at this point to welcome Dr. Jane Waduta, the host, to tell us whether we are, for how long, whether we are welcome and for how long, and what is it that might get us chased here. Of course, by the time you got yourself here, your dress code must have been acceptable, so you don't have to worry about, of course, unless it changes along the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Macharia. He also goes by Joseph. I'm yet to know why he doesn't use that name. Very, very important person in biblical history, among other, two important Josephs in biblical history, isn't it? Yeah? But he likes Macharia more. Maybe there's no need to ask him why, because of course, made in Kenya, right? Anyway, I'm happy to be here and to warmly welcome all of you to this special launch or rather the launch of the special issue of the Strathmore Law Journal titled Beyond Formal Law, the Role of Ethics, Belief and Values in Amplifying Action Against Plastic Pollution in Africa. I have a feeling that this thing here has something to do with why we are here. There's a secret here that will be unveiled in due course. I think it's duly been prepared as such, and so it's good to already look forward to the launch itself, and I guess above all to engaging with what the various authors have put in this volume for our consumption. So I wish to also acknowledge the presence of our guests, Professor Patricia Kameri-Mbote, Dr. Stephanie Hottenberger. We're expecting Honorable Gitobui Manyara. I hope he will be able to join us. I also want to appreciate the presence of Venerable Counsel Frederick K. Gasheru, and a number of my colleagues who have already been mentioned, our friends like Prof. Thomas Milley And all of you, yeah, who have come, some I understand have come from Kabarak, or are the ones from Kabarak here already? Yes? Not yet? Coming, yeah? We say this is pre-Easter traffic. Maybe they are stuck in the traffic from between here and Nakuru, but it's very good to know that they intend to be here. And of course, our closer neighbors, not to mention our own students. Some of them are graduating soon, but it's good to see that they still want to be here in our midst, beyond what they have learned in class. So this issue, this special issue of the Strathmore Law Journal, is to help us draw focus on the need and the urgency of addressing plastic pollution beyond legal frameworks. This special issue was an idea born out of the third session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, INC. Professor Kameri Mbote can speak much better and much more about it. Mine is just to acknowledge that workshop that was hosted by UNEP and CAS, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, in collaboration with Strathmore University in November of 2023. And this workshop brought together various stakeholders within Kenya and beyond to discuss the importance of combating plastic pollution in a manner that upholds the morals, values, and beliefs that we hold within our diverse cultures. The result of the workshop was a call for academic papers that drew focus on the plastic pollution issue, adopting the theme of the workshop, which I have just stated, and that forms the basis of the launch. So this special issue highlights the intersection of environmental law and the idea behind norms, values, and beliefs that we hold concerning the importance of the environment. I think I'd say consciously or not, these concepts are so loaded. So there are those values, norms, beliefs that we hold or should be holding, or we're not aware, but they're important, and so on. So I find that it's a very loaded statement, and I hope that the various authors have been able to help us, or will help us through our reading and interaction with them, to unpack the depth of these concepts. The special issue is also a reminder that plastic pollution is a moral issue and not just a legal one, contrary to what many of us may think. So as I conclude, I want to express my heartfelt thanks to UNEP, to CAS, for their financial and technical support in the publication of this issue. I also want to thank the respective authors for taking up the challenge to own the issue and make it a success. Again, also to thank the Strathmore Law Journal, led by Masharia Kaguru, who's the immediate former editor-in-chief and has worked very hard to see this day and this event come to light. Thank you very much, Masharia, and for overseeing the publication of the journal. We're looking forward. For now, we just have a QR code and this mysterious figure here, but we're looking forward to having the journal in our hands or in our phones, as the case may be. Thank you all for accepting the invitation to join us in the launch, and we look forward to seeing the impact the journal will have in Africa and beyond. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Waduta, for also being very supportive when we needed assistance. Next is Dr. Stephanie. And Dr. Stephanie, if there is one person who has believed in the idea and has pushed it all along, is Dr. Stephanie. We are very grateful. We are always liaising with her colleagues, and it has to be done. It must get done. We must get through. Thank you very much. Please come and give us your opening remarks, and we are grateful.
Thank you. Dear Dr. Jane Wathuta, the Dean of Strathmore University School of Law, dear Professor Patricia Kameri-Mbote, the head of the Law Division of UNEP, all protocols observed, distinguished guests, esteemed partners, colleagues, and friends. It's a great pleasure and honor for me as the director of Konrad Adenauer Foundation's Rule of Law program for Sub-Saharan Africa to be a co-host of the launch of, I would say, a quite remarkable remarkable book, a special edition of the reputable Strathmore Law Journal on the topic of the fight against plastic pollution beyond formal law. An approach that we worked intensively upon during a workshop organized by UNEP, Strathmore University, and our program about 1.5 years ago here at Strathmore University. Before I delve a little bit more into the topic, I would, however, like to give you a brief about our organization, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, for those of you who are not familiar with us. Konrad Adenauer Foundation is a German political foundation closely affiliated to the German Christian Democratic Party, which is the party of former Federal Chancellor Angela Merkel, and is based in Berlin with more than 100 offices worldwide, fostering democracy, human rights, social market economy, peace and solidarity. Our rule of law program for sub-Saharan Africa is just one of these more than 100 offices. And since 2006, with our rule of law program, we've been fostering the rule of law, democracy, human rights, constitutionalism, international criminal justice in the whole region, including, of course, and that is one of the core pillars of our program, environmental law. A field in which we have done numerous projects in the past, be it with legal experts or with young lawyers, with law students, or with citizens from Africa, raising legal awareness on their environmental rights. And what is always of major importance for me and for us as a program is to create an impact with our activities. And this is why the project Beyond Formal Law and this publication is so meaningful for us as Konrad Adenauer Foundation. It is in fact the outcome of several remarkable activities building upon each other. And today's publication will for sure not be a final point, or maybe I should say a terminal in a quite interesting and inspiring journey. A journey that began for us as Konrad Adenauer Foundation in May 2023, when we hosted a global parliamentarians conference here in Nairobi on the freedom of religion and belief. Parliamentarians from all over the world came together with stakeholders from different spheres of society, discussing about the interlinkages between the Sustainable Development Goals and religious freedom. And what was amongst the major findings of this conference was that when it comes to lawmaking with regard to implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, it is essential to engage actors beyond the traditional legal sphere, such as religious leaders, community influencers, civil society, including the youth at an early stage. And I was particularly happy that Professor Patricia Kameri-Mbote was our keynote speaker during the conference on environmental justice. And it was in fact her who approached me after the conference and brought up the idea to continue working in this direction and to further explore how informal norms rooted in faith, culture, and community can work alongside the law to foster sustainable, meaningful change. And so we put this approach in the context of the United Nations Environment Programme's ongoing work toward a legally binding international instrument on the fight against plastic pollution. And we were honored that also, thanks to Strathmore University's commitment to fostering innovative and inclusive legal scholarship, we were able to hold a workshop on the topic under the title Beyond Formal Law here at Strathmore University in November 2023. I remember this workshop as an extraordinary gathering of minds and voices. Academics, civil society leaders, indigenous peoples representatives, youth and environmental law experts were brought together by a common cause. Their reflections captured in the chapters of our publication offer something rare, a bridge between doctrine and daily life, between policy and practice. In line with our work as a rule of law program, we are privileged to have lent our support to this publication, which is as timely as it is thought-provoking. To be on this unique project means a lot to CAS, but also to me personally. Before I came to Kenya, I was a civil servant at German Parliament, and I went on many missions around the world on different political topics. And I remember one mission very well that brought us to the Pacific Island Republic of Kiribati in 2016. The mission of this journey was to gather more information and knowledge on disappearing island states because of climate change. What we didn't expect, well, we expected to land in a paradise of Pacific islands. What we didn't expect is that these islands were covered in plastic waste. And to be honest, it was one of the saddest places I ever went to. And we were actually quite happy to leave. An island that probably before it will disappear from the map will be disappearing under plastic waste. So I would never have thought nearly 10 years ago that I would have the privilege years later to work on a pressing topic like this with the Rule of Law program and with wonderful partners like UNEP and Strathmore University. We were not only able to submit the outcomes and findings of our joint workshop to the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee for a Global Plastic Pollution Treaty, but we were also able to put a unique publication together, which is the reason why we are here today. A publication that reminds us that laws do not operate in a vacuum. They need to be interpreted and applied, and they are either embraced or resisted in real social contexts. Contexts shaped by beliefs, traditions, and moral convictions. With this publication, in fact, with our entire Beyond Formal Law project, we celebrate a shift in mindset, one that recognizes that legislation, while crucial, must be complemented by an inclusive dialogue, cultural understanding, and moral leadership. This fight, or the fight against plastic pollution and the broader pursuit of environmental justice, demand nothing less. Before I close, I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to our partners, the Strathmore University School of Law and the UN Environmental Program, whose commitment and leadership have made this collaboration not only possible, but impactful. My gratitude, furthermore, goes to our authors, editors, and reviewers whose great work and dedication brought this insightful journal to life. May this publication inspire continued scholarship, deeper collaboration, and bold action in the months and years ahead. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephanie, for a well-summarized version of how we got ourselves here. And probably most of you are asking what the animal beyond formal law is, especially because you're hosted in a law school. And a law school typically teaches law. It doesn't teach, what exactly is it that we are going beyond to and leaving what primarily law schools are meant to cover. Thank you very much, Dr. Stephanie. And a small secret, whatever refreshments you will have here, you will have Dr. Stephanie and her team to thank. Okay? The water and everything else that put in your mouth is high effort, which we are grateful for. Going back to the workshop that Dr. Stephanie has referenced to, the ever-quiet Dr. Kwenjera gave us a quote that we have been using since that day. And I think it rose in a context of that social fences are better off than physical fences when it comes to either security or environmental protection. I don't know what comes to your mind if someone simply throws a statement to you that social fences are better off than physical fences. Since I'm the moderator, I have some discretion to ask any of us to tell us along the way what they think of that statement. Dr. Kwenjera, thank you. We've been misusing your quote all over, and it has been very, very effective. Secondly, because we are talking about plastic, I don't know how many of us have used plastics today. Have you come across one? Have you come across one? How many times in a day? How many times in a day? Do you litter them around? Do you have a place to put them? Or it doesn't go there? Do you litter around? Have you seen plastic waste around here? Or on your way here, probably on the highway? And the question is, we all know we have a law says do not litter, but if I asked many of you what that law is, you'd be like, I don't know whether it exists. And the further question would be, why then didn't you litter? Is it because the law says you don't, and that county askaris will come around arresting you if you don't? So I will also want that answer. Why exactly, assuming, and I know majority of all of us don't, because we came and we are responsible people, is to ask ourselves, why don't you go throwing papers around, for instance? Why don't you litter plastics everywhere? Is it because there is Environment and Management Act, EMCA, and some NEMA officials might come following you, or because we have city, county, and probably they will come after you, or I don't know who checks whether there is littering here, and I suspect there is none, because we are good people and responsible people. Okay, next is Professor Mbote. She will also be the keynote speaker, so I am proposing that she performs the two roles simultaneously. I know energetic, and she has taught for many, many years, so this is bringing her back to her happy place. So Professor Mbote, welcome. She will combine, you will welcome us as a host, and you will also help us understand what is it that we are talking about, why does it matter, where does it apply, and so forth. And for your information, Professor Mbote was my dean in law school and a student of her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Macharia. I am, first of all, to recognize our host, the Dean, Dr. Jane Wathuta, and our esteemed partner, the Director of CAS Rule of Law, Dr. Stephanie Rodenberger, and also all of you who've chosen to spend this evening with us launching this journal. It is indeed a good thing that we met in 2023 here at this same auditorium to discuss this idea of beyond formal law. And when we were discussing it with Stephanie and also then I think the Dean was Gwenjera, I didn't see the ripples that it would have. But I think also being in the space of multilateralism at the United Nations Environment Programme, talking about beyond formal laws, but people sometimes wonder, is this really your remit? Or should you be only dallying with member states? But at UNEP, I'd like to introduce this partner, UNEP. You probably all know that UNEP is the only headquarters of the United Nations in the Global South, here in Nairobi, and was established here in 1972 after the Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment. It turned 50 years in 2022, and it is at that 50th birthday that member states agreed to a resolution on to combat plastic pollution. So there is a landmark resolution there. UNEP is the leading global authority on the environment, and the law division that I lead would be then the leading global authority on environmental law, based in Nairobi, but with offices in different parts of the world, in Bangkok, in Geneva, in Panama, in Beirut, and also in New York. So in essence, this is just a small part of the work we do. I'd encourage you to go to UNEP. Only takes people here a matatu ride, or a matatu ride might be easier. Or you could drive there, and you could actually go on a tour of the campus to know the different things that UNEP is doing. It is actually growing very much. We now have quite a number of UN entities coming to Nairobi. UNEP is one, Habitat is the other that has been here all along, but now we have the United Nations FPA and the UN Women, UNICEF, all coming to be headquartered in Nairobi. So in essence, UNEP will cease to be the only entity. It has not been the only entity because these ones have had offices there, but they will now be headquartered here in Nairobi. So I'd now like to start on the keynote address. And I think when we talk about plastic pollution, we must contextualize. Why are we concerned about plastic? And I think some statistics here will paint the picture. Every second, the world produces 13 tons of plastic. 2/3 of these are single use. Every minute, the world dumps the equivalent of 1.5 million garbage trucks full of plastics into the oceans, rivers, and lakes. So a staggering 14 million tons ends up in our oceans. And you know, our oceans provide food for people in the form of fish. The dumping and pollution of plastic alters natural ecosystems, it destabilizes aquatic life, it impoverishes natural environments with reliant communities, and poses great risks to human health and other forms of life. I'm sure you have followed research that now shows that we have microplastics in our systems. And this is coming from our interaction with species that have dallied with plastic or with our dalliance directly with plastic. Unless we change this, it is estimated that by 2050, there will be more plastic in the oceans than there will be fish. And of course, that is bad news for communities that depend on fish for protein. So this is a catastrophe that has not just happened overnight. It's been observed, and scientists have been ringing the alarm bells about the presence of plastic in our environment. And the United Nations Environment Assembly had discussed plastic pollution from way back in, I believe, 2017. And the whole question was, what is it that we will be dealing with? So when the fifth meeting of the United Nations Environment Assembly was convened in 2022, one of the resolutions that was passed was on end plastic pollution, and the subtitle was Towards an Internationally Legally Binding Instrument to combat plastics, including in the marine environment. And I'd like you to hold on to the words internationally legally binding instrument. So this resolution follows on initiatives by individual countries to deal with the plastic menace. You know that before 2022, Kenya had already banned single-use plastic. And actually, 66% of countries worldwide have some form of legislation to regulate plastic bags. And only 8 out of the 192 countries assessed have established bans of microbeads through national laws or regulations. These initiatives I would like to propose are a drop in the ocean, and the pun is intended because we say that the ocean is going to be full of fish. So if we are saying that only a few countries are addressing the problem, this is a very small group. And Kenya is among those countries that have banned the use of single-use plastics. But we still see quite a lot of plastics, despite the ban. And the question is, why is it that the law has not reined in the littering of plastic bags? And there are people who say that consumer behavior and awareness about environmental factors is critical in dealing with environmentally degrading substances, including plastics. And for instance, I'd like to contradistinguish plastics with CFCs that deplete the ozone layer. When countries decided that this must go and took very clear mechanisms to put it out, we now have almost a healed ozone hole, despite the fact that, again, as we heal the ozone hole, the byproducts of the products that replace the CFCs, the hate CFCs, are now causing climate change, which again is another problem. But you can see a concerted effort by member states to want to deal with ozone. And maybe we should be aiming for a similar enthusiasm where plastic is concerned. The plastic treaty when passed, is not going to be the only multilateral environmental agreement. There are hundreds of multilateral environmental agreements, but despite these multilateral environmental agreements, we still see the environment going down. And this introduces then the limits of formal law. When you want to look at a country to determine whether the rule of law operates there, you check whether their formal laws have been promulgated. And when you see that there are laws, for instance, of property, on contracts, then you will say that there is rule of law, at least recognized. And in fact, formal law occupies a very, very prime position in countries and in societies. But the question is, have they changed people's behavior? I could talk about the limits of formal law till the cows come home, because formal law in very many places is not working. And this is because formal law doesn't control all aspects of people's lives. And in fact, many times, people will actually breach formal law if they know that they will not be caught. So if the probability of getting caught, getting prosecuted and being taken forward is minimal, you may want to take a chance, and you hope that the gamble will pay, that you will not be caught. In plural societies such as ours, and such as many in Africa, where we have colonial histories, local norms still control aspects of human lives. And I give the example, for instance, in private law. Even when people are in Venerable Council's church, the Anglican Church of Kenya, they will still feel that for their union to be accepted, they need to go through customary norms, true or false. And it is not because what they will get as a certificate isn't binding. It is because of the pull and the force of the norms that deal with marriage. The colonial powers actually really tried to obliterate the local norms, saying that they were repugnant to justice and morality. But they have refused to die. And the more they were fought, the more they keep popping up in unlikely spaces. And what then lawyers like ourselves, who are former lawyers, find is that there is all this law, but we still have problems. And here again, what we find is that in the legal toolbox that we have, we still don't have enough spanners to fix all the problems. And in fact, a lot of formal law suffers from dearth of enforcement and compliance. And the question is, how can you get people to comply more? So basically, when you have laws that are not in sync with what people believe, it's going to require a lot of force to ensure that people follow those rules. And it would therefore be easier if there are norms that are in sync with people's social morals to work on those. And of course, there are those that there are no-go areas, but here I'm talking about littering, or even making a river dirty by dumping effluent into the river. That kind of, you know, you may wait until night and then you throw out what is the offensive matter because you won't be seen. But if there were norms like water is life, so if you dirty water that people take, you are actually commensurate to a murderer because you're denying people fresh water. So formal law though, and those other informal norms are sometimes strange bedfellows. They pull in different directions, and so you may have formal law saying this is what you should do, and then informal norms which have been there. And I go back to water. So where you are, for instance, told that you can only access water through a water resource use association, yet you have always gone to the stream and got water. So what you then have is contests with the new introduced institutions and the institutions that were there, which are not quite working together. And basically, informal norms tend to be within the body politic of the society. So you don't have to have police to watch over people. Just it being known that Dr. Koinjera is the one who pollutes the water. People may even avoid him because he is actually not a good person in the community. So in essence, what we are saying is informal norms where they promote environmentally sound behavior might be more effective than formal law that requires a lot of coercive power to enforce. Because for instance, if you're talking about preventing people from encroaching into forests, and the forest has no walls. So you would have to have police around the entire forest to ensure that people don't dash in and dash out. But if people know that there is something to respect in the forest, and they police themselves and each other, then it's going to be a lot easier to look after the forests. One of the biggest problems and the disconnect between formal law and informal law through colonization is the introduction of a law that is public, and that was now the state law, which is now supposed to help you deal with a number of things. This state law neglected the fact that in many communities, the public and the private were one. So if you had a chief, the chief didn't just mind public affairs, he also minded private affairs. So when you now yank a chief out and you make them only responsible for public affairs, there is a remit of people's actions and the chief's authority that you sort of remove that could actually help in managing our environment. And the one good example, for instance, is where you're talking about wildlife conservation. I know that Dr. Stephanie mentioned wildlife conservation. When the colonialists came and established parks, the parks then drew fences, not social fences, physical fences between people and the wildlife. And after delineating those, what they didn't contend with was that not all animals were in the parks. In fact, in Kenya, at the last census, over 70% of wildlife is in community and private land. So if we concentrate too much on the park, what are we doing with the animals that are outside? And basically, the animals that are outside live with people, on people's land. People know how to live with them. So if you now break this relationship, you may actually endanger the animals rather than protect the animals. Again, when you look at the area of plastic pollution, plastic is everywhere. It is used in health, it is used in the food industry. If you look at your car, it has plastic. So we have to designate which is the plastic that we want to deal with. And I think the plastic that we want to deal with is that plastic that ends up in the ocean, the single use. And the question then is, how do we deal with that? By changing people's behavior. How do you change people's behavior? You could do it through faith norms. At UNEP, we have the Faith for Earth initiative, which looks at the use of faith tenets in sustainable conservation of the environment, and actually has very much used Laudato Si, the encyclical by Pope Francis, and also produced Al-Mizan, which is the Muslim version of Laudato Si. And actually all faiths do have tenets that tell people to look after the environment. So the case I'm making here is for moving beyond the multilateral environmental agreement, moving beyond the national laws that we have on banning plastic use, to the space where you look at what people are doing with the environment and using what they have. It could also be concepts such as Ubuntu, I am because you are. So if I mess up with the water, you will not be, and I may also not be, because the water has a sense of being then recycled. So even though formal law has force, it has the state coercive power, we need to think about other norms that regulate our life. And you know, I said yes, the faith ones, but they are also the taboos. Each person here, sitting here, represents an amalgam of norms. So you are at one part, an international person maybe, you are big in government, you are a Christian, but you are a tribal. You are a villager. In your village, maybe there are things that are said about certain things. So there are people who say, if you don't look after X plant, then something is going to happen to you. And do you want to find out whether it will happen to you? They will be telling you how many people it has happened to. And so those kinds of norms, I think we sometimes neglect them. And I remember it was the former Chief Justice Mutunga was saying that when there is a land dispute, you tell people, okay, we are going now to have kamote. Kamote is a Kamba traditional way of resolving disputes. Or others will say, you drink something and we will watch what happens to you. So you'd rather tell the truth than wait for what will happen to you if you drink the concoction that is given to you. So what we are basically saying in Beyond Formal Law, and you will see in the different chapters, is that they are complementary to formal treaty provisions and to national laws. They have their own enforcement mechanisms, which could be, one is ostracizing the person, the other one is shaming the person or embarrassing the person. And they have different actors to ensure adherence to the set norms. So you don't have to have police people watching over people because the society is the police. over these norms. So, in conclusion, I'd like to surmise that the environmental challenges over time, including plastic pollution, require us to marshal all the tools at our disposal. We must look at norms and legal realities outside the formal law. And I've given you the example of the Faith for Earth initiative in UNEP. UNEP also has a very vibrant group of major groups and stakeholders, realizing that you can't just be working with member states because the environment is not in the state capitals. It is actually where people live. So we need to put all hands on deck and ensure that all of us contribute to dealing with environmental challenges, including plastic pollution. Thank you.
Again, let's applaud her. Once again, it's those of us who have moderated sessions where professor is a keynote, is always difficult to speak after. We can as well, by now, I hope we now know what beyond formal law is and what is it that we are trying to explore. And if we close the day here, though it's not the main activity, I am sure we've carried out a few of the ideas and what the program and the project is about. It's set in the context of plastics, and it's shocking that you might be surprised that you have microplastics in your brain. And this has been scientifically proven. There are many publications on that plastics have found themselves in human brain. We have plastics in the most remote areas of the world, and the question is, until when does it stop? And the fact that we are already dealing with another crisis called climate change, which, and Prof. Sambote mentioned, they are interlinked, and they are interlinked in the sense of their occurrence and what they cause. And what they are doing is, when you combine them, they even make the situation worse than if it was an individual, each of the aspects contributing on their own. It's good to know that not all parts of our human life is controlled by formal law. And I keep coming back to the question I asked. You probably don't litter. I don't know why you don't litter, but chances are it has very little to do with the fact that there exists a law enacted in Parliament of Kenya or bylaws by the Nairobi City County. Probably you have no idea they exist, and even if you do, chances are that they most likely are not the primary motivating factors. And she's given examples of those traditions, customs, beliefs, religious scripts that would support dealing with the plastic pollution and generally environmental pollution. And those of you who come from where I come from, you probably don't want to test what would happen to you if you did something to Mugumo tree, for instance. There's one that fell in Nyeri the other day. I don't know what the meaning of it is, but you could see, even when the locals were engaging, they had to go and call some elderly people to come and clean it before they cut it into pieces. We are not saying we use such scary stories, but it's simply ask, if we have these aspects that they are not written in law and no one would term them illegal, but the truth is they affect and control the manner in which we deal ourselves in lives. I think the point is that we need to explore the possibility of what religion provides. So if we interpret nature to be a gift from the Creator, that would change a whole perspective of how we see it and why we care about it. From here, we will go to the next speaker, who is an interesting one. He's both a lawyer and in the religion. I'm very excited that he could join us. We will not be in a sermon, though we wouldn't mind having one, but we want to combine the aspect of law. What is law and what does it do, and how do we complement these other norms that we are talking about? In this case, we picked religion as a standpoint. So I would like to introduce Frederick Kamau Gachelu. Is a seasoned advocate of Kenya, ordained as a clergy of the Anglican Church. He brings over 25 years of experience in ecclesiastical service and a strong foundation in legal practice. His unique career bridges theology, law development, demonstrated expertise in various aspects of law. Brother Gachelu currently serves as a Diocesan Administrative Secretary for the ACK Diocese of Mount Kenya South, where he oversees institutional operations and strategic initiatives. And at this juncture, I would like to welcome Reverend to pick it from there. Thank you very much. Please applaud him as he comes.
Dr. Jane Wathuta, the Dean, Strathmore University Law School, my own Dean at the University of Nairobi, Professor Patricia Kameri Mbote, now the Director, Law Division, UNEP, Dr. Stephanie Rothenberger, the Director, Rule of Law, Programs, KES, Mr. Masharia Kaguru, who happens to also be my contemporary at the University of Nairobi, and my colleague and friend, the Reverend Joseph Wawero, distinguished guests, esteemed legal professionals, environmental advocates, scholars, cultural custodians, law students, and fellow stewards of our Mother Earth. Good afternoon. Good afternoon once again. It is a great honor to join you at this important launch of a journal that urges us to look beyond the boundaries of statutes and treaties and instead peer into the heart of what truly governs human behavior, and that is ethics, beliefs, and values. The theme, Beyond Formal Law, the role of ethics, beliefs, and values in amplifying action against plastic pollution in Africa, cause us to deepen our understanding of environmental governance. We are in the throes of an ecological crisis characterized by climatic change, biodiversity loss, deforestation, pollution of air and water, and land degradation, which are no longer future threats, but they are present realities. And while our legal systems have made commendable efforts to respond to this crisis, we must all admit that formal law alone is not sufficient. As both an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and an Anglican clergy trained in theology and ordained to serve in pulpit ministry, I come to this space from a dual vantage point where legal frameworks intersect with faith and where codified law meets unwritten moral traditions and religious practices. In Africa, just as Professor Kameri Mbote has observed, culture and religion are inseparable. In this presentation, I will invite us to reflect through a third lens alongside ethics and values, neatly interwoven with religion, and that is culture, which is the bedrock of African societies. Paradoxically, the oldest but literate grandmother in my village, when addressing a gathering of unlettered women, paraphrases Section 7 of the Penal Code of Kenya, Cap 63, by firmly telling them that ignorance of law is no defense. Whilst this is factual, let us exegete the legal provision by asking ourselves, how many citizens in Kenya, save for legislators, the legal drafters, the researchers, and the court users, ever interact with the formal law? My central message is this: Africa's war against plastic pollution cannot be won by legislation alone. The most effective laws are those that resonate with people's deepest values, beliefs, and identity. We must harmonize formal law with the moral voice of faith, the normative weight of ethics, and the lived wisdom of African cultures through formal norms. Informal law consists of uncodified norms and practices that are socially binding. These include religious commandments, ethical principles, traditional customs, and communal practices. Unlike statutory laws, informal laws are not legislated or enforced by the state. Yet, they carry profound influence, often shaping individual and collective behavior long before or even irrespective of state intervention. In many African societies, including Kenya, informal law is lived law. As Sally Forkmore noted, law is not just what courts do, it is also what families, communities, religious congregations, and elders do. These informal systems are not static relics of the past, they are dynamic, adaptive, and influential. In Africa, informal law governs marriage, just as the professor has observed, land ownership, dispute resolution, and increasingly environmental behavior. Africa is home to vibrant legal pluralism. Our customary systems long existed before colonial registration. In many rural and peri-urban communities today, when people decide whether to ban plastic, to dump it, or even to reuse a bottle, they are not necessarily thinking about a formal law. They are acting based on social expectations, their religious teachings, and cultural taboos. Plastic pollution presents a challenge that no single institution can solve. The laws exist. In Kenya, for example, as the professor has said, we banned single-use plastic bags in the year 2017 and extended restriction to parks and protected areas in the year 2020. Yet today, the persistence of plastic shows that laws alone cannot shift deeply entrenched behavior. Rwanda is globally recognized as a leader in environmental conservation. Its environmental policies are not only effective, but they are also well codified in law and national developmental plans. With the existence of the laws, but with the non-existence of their observance, we must turn to what the law cannot codify, and that is our conscience, our religious convictions, our communal values, and our cultural wisdom. Beyond religious or cultural identity, ethics provide a universal language. Ethics invite us to ask not just, is it legal, but also, is it right? Environmental governance raises profound ethical questions like, what do we owe future generations? Do non-human creatures have moral standing? Who bears the burden of climatic change and who caused it? The answers require an ethic of responsibility. The philosopher Hans Jonas spoke of an ethic of the future, a duty to safeguard life beyond our immediate interests. Likewise, the African ethic of Ubuntu, I am because we are, extends relational responsibilities to both humans and the environment. Environmental ethics call for justice. This includes intergenerational justice, that is, what kind of planet are we going to leave behind? Distributive justice, how environmental goods and burdens are shared, and procedural justice, whose voices are heard in environmental decisions. In Kenya, issues of land use, forced evictions and displacement of communities for mega projects raise ethical red flags. Formal law may be followed, but if the spirit of justice is violated, the system fails. From a theological standpoint, plastic pollution is not an environmental crisis. It is a spiritual one. It reveals a broken relationship between humanity and the Mother Earth and the Creator of the creation. The Judeo-Christian tradition offers profound insights into humanity's relationship with the environment. The scripture speaks to this. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15 reminds us that humanity was placed in the Garden of Eden to fill it and to keep it. The phrase to keep it in Hebrew shama means to guard and to preserve. The biblical vision is one of stewardship, not domination. When plastic chokes our rivers, suffocates marine life, and fuels the bellies of cattle and children alike, we have failed in this stewardship. In Psalm 24 and verse 1, the Bible says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it." That includes the oceans filled with microplastics and the soil contaminated with polymer waste. To pollute the earth is to desecrate what is sacred. The earth, from this perspective, is not merely a resource to be exploited, but a sacred trust. This theology of stewardship finds resonance in the Anglican Communion's fifth mark of mission, which says we are striving to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. Professor Mbote has mentioned about Pope Francis in his Laudato Si of 2015, where he speaks of an integral ecology that links care for the environment with care for humanity, especially the poor. Pope Francis reminds us the earth herself, burdened and laid waste, is among the most abandoned and maltreated of our poor. From an Islamic perspective, Mizan, which means balance, and Khilafah, which means stewardship, underpin environmental ethics. From a Christian standpoint, we are called not just to have dominion, but to serve creation. From African traditional religion, sacredness of land and water is paramount. Plastic pollution is also a justice issue. It disproportionately affects the poor, those who live near dump sites, those without access to clean water, and those who rely on subsistence agriculture. It is an intergenerational injustice. Our convenience today is the burden of tomorrow's children. In religion, we call this sin. Religion does more than offer theology. It functions as moral infrastructure. Places of worship influence behavior of a vast scale. Sermons, liturgies, sacred texts, and pastoral counseling provide moral guidance. Religious leaders can mobilize communities for tree planting, cleanup campaigns, and conservation education. Consider the role of the Roman Catholics and the Anglicans, who have actively supported reforestation, promoted climatic justice, and engage in interfaith environmental coalitions. During the annual Lenten season, Christians dedicate themselves in fasting, not just for personal piety, but also for ecological repentance. Religious leaders can do what laws cannot. That is, to speak to the conscience of the people, evoke guilt, inspire repentance, and model new behavior. Religious leaders can teach that littering is not just unsightly, it is sinful. That reusing is not just economical, it is ethical. That cleanliness is next to godliness, not just in homes, but also in the rivers and in the streets that we all share. Plastic pollution is not just a theological failure, it is also a cultural crisis. It marks a rupture between modern consumerism and indigenous sustainability. In many African cultures, the earth is not just matter, it is our mother. To pollute the earth is to insult the ancestors, to dishonor our heritage, to endanger future generations, and to live a morally irresponsible life. Therefore, the fight against plastic is not just environmental, it is also a call for cultural renewal. We are not simply banning plastic, we are returning to who we are. Religious institutions remain among the most trusted and influential in African societies. Every week, millions attend church services, mosque prayers, shrines, and temple ceremonies. These are not just spiritual encounters, they are sites of moral formation. When clergy denounce pollution from the pulpit, we are shaping people's norms. When imams integrate environmental ethics into sermons, they are amplifying divine responsibility. When the traditional priests forbid dumping in sacred rivers, they are invoking a law higher than the codified government policies. The Green Anglican movement is already creating green churches. The Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims, SUPKEM, has partnered in plastic cleanup drives. Interfaith platforms like the Interreligious Council of Kenya are incorporating climate action into their peace-building agendas. What we need now is scale and integration. Faith leaders must become environmental educators. Worship space must model zero waste practices. Religious rituals must incorporate prayers for creation care. African cultures are not static. They evolve dynamically, but they also carry deep ecological intelligence. In Kenya and across Africa, many communities possess a long-standing relationship with the environment governed by indigenous knowledge systems. Just to sample a few, among the Mijikenda community, the Kaya forests are sacred. Entry is restricted. Rituals are conducted and deforestation is prohibited. Not because of the state laws, but because of spiritual reverence. Among the Kikuyu community, Mount Kenya, which is also called Kirinyaga, is viewed as a sacred place, God's dwelling, whose forests are preserved as shrines. Cutting certain trees or polluting specific rivers is taboo. These taboos are not irrational. They serve ecological functions by protecting biodiversity, preserving water sources, and maintaining soil fertility. These practices are informal law at work. They are enforced by community pressure, social norms, and traditional authority. Environmental scholars like Professor Wangari Maathai, herself a product of indigenous environmental values, have repeatedly called for the integration of these practices into national environmental frameworks. Among the Luo community, Lake Victoria had ritual significance. Among the Maasai community, land was not only a commodity, but a communal trust. As Professor has observed, culture gives us taboos. For instance, restriction on fishing during spawning seasons. Culture gives us narratives. Proverbs like, "He who burns the forest burns his own roof." Culture gives us rituals like planting trees at birth and praying before harvesting. These religious and cultural practices created an ecological ethos long before the word environmentalism entered our vocabulary. In modern times, these cultural tools are repurposed for contemporary threats like plastic. Simply put, African cultures traditionally practiced low-waste lifestyles and lived in harmony with nature. Before the era of plastic sachets and bottles, we used calabashes, gourds, woven baskets, banana leaves, and clay pots. Our ancestors were zero waste long before the term became fashionable in the West. Communities understood the seasons, honored the rivers, and treated certain forests as sacred groves. However, challenges remain. Some customary practices may be gender biased, exclusionary, or vulnerable to manipulation. We must therefore approach them critically by recognizing their value. Just as we have witnessed the resurgence of popularization of traditional nutritious foods, we can deliberately revamp our cultural-based programs which will result in eco-friendly environments. We can develop cultural festivals around cleanup. We can empower traditional leaders to enforce environmental behavior. We can infuse storytelling with climate themes, and we can raise eco-warriors by not only in classrooms, but also around village fires. Our own Constitution of Kenya of 2010, Article 11, affirms culture as a foundation of the nation. Article 69 of the same Constitution calls for eliminating processes that harm the environment and promotes the use of indigenous knowledge systems. The Environmental Management and Coordination Act, EMCA, recognizes community participation in environmental education. Courts are increasingly open to interpreting environmental harm through a rights-based lens. Environmental impact assessments should include cultural heritage reports. Environmental courts can consider moral and cultural evidence in pollution cases. Bylaws can be drafted in collaboration with the faith institutions and elders. The judiciary in recent years has shown willingness to engage with informal law. In Joseph Letuya and 21 others versus Attorney General and 5 others 2014, the court acknowledged the historical and cultural rights of the Ogiek community to live in the Mau forest. In referencing cultural and spiritual ties to land, the court illustrated how formal law reasoning can respect informal norms. The challenge is not legal conflict, but legal synergy. When law is reinforced by religious and moral conviction, and also by cultural pride, it becomes unbreakable. The law must not only punish the polluter, it must also inspire the protector. This is the work of integrated governance, where formal law and informal norms reinforce each other. As I draw closer to my conclusion, allow me to make this humble multi-sectoral appeal. First, to the legal scholars seated in this assembly, let us draft policies that speak not only to reason, but also to the soul. Let us honor indigenous jurisprudence as a legitimate source of legal wisdom. Secondly, to the environmentalists seated here, don't just mobilize data, mobilize churches, the choirs and the elders and the Christians, and also the village youths. The greenest revolutions are led by communities, not committees. Thirdly, to the clergy fraternity, make your sermons touch the soil. We should preach the gospel of reusability. We should organize plastic-free liturgies. We should allow our altars and compounds to reflect the cleanliness we preach. My colleague, the Reverend Joseph Waweru, who accompanied me this afternoon to this forum, and I serve in the Anglican Church of Kenya in the Diocese of Mount Kenya South, where through the wisdom and insights of our Father Bishop Charles Muturi, and in response to environmental conservation, in our year 2025 thematic series, we have dedicated the whole month of May to address the theme of going clean and green with deliberate commitment to care for the environment, the ecological discipleship and cleanups, among other practical aspects. Fourthly, it is to the cultural leaders. They should speak up and reclaim our voice. Let our wisdom guide how we eat, how we shop, how we dispose, and how we relate to nature. As a clergy cum advocate, allow me to spiritualize the menace environmental degradation generally has done, and that of plastic pollution, specifically by saying that this is not just a legal issue. It is spiritual disobedience. It is a cultural erosion and an ethical negligence. But it can be turned around if and only if we act together. Let me leave you with this biblical verse from Romans chapter 8 and verse 22, which says, all creation is groaning. Today, it groans under the weight of plastics clogging our streams, killing our cattle, and darkening our future. Let us listen to ourselves and silence this groan, not with mere legal decrees, but with daily choices, cultural pride, ethical clarity, and spiritual humility. Let the battle against plastic also be a journey back to ourselves, to our faith, to our ancestry, and to our identity. The earth is not ours to waste, it is ours to cherish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope you are excited as I am. I've been writing notes since Reverend stood up. I think it was exciting. Have you learned a couple of things? Well, threatened by a few scriptures, which is that is, we want to appeal to that consciousness. We want to appeal to individual consciousness, morality, ethical behaviors, and we are very excited that we could have you talk to us. It was very well thought out, very well done, and our rapporteurs are taking notes. We will provide a summary, and the videos will also be available. This was a very good session. I have nothing to add. I hope you have all heard. You know, if you receive a great speech, a great lecture, and you start explaining it, you alter it down. And I don't want to be accused of that. I am looking at my colleagues, Tabitha and Miriam, to get ready, but thank you very much, and also to Reverend Wawelo, thank you again for accompanying your colleague. We are humbled to have you. We've taken a few of the notes, many among those that I have managed to capture. It's good to know that the religion and religious basis have grounding that we can use, and I'm very happy to see Cynthia, who works at NEMA. I hope, lawyer at NEMA. I hope these are some of the things you will carry along. Very good to see you, and very excited to be here. I hope, Dr. Kariuki, you can talk to Reverend Gasharu to join one of your mediation sessions. You clearly have a very good mediator in the making. Hopefully, you can have a conversation. Otherwise, thank you very much. I invite my colleagues, Tabitha, to take over from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Macharia, for the invitation. Now we have reached the part of the most exciting part of the launch, which is the actual launch of the journal itself, the special journal. And not only did we draft papers, but we put the papers into a journal, the first special journal that the Strathmore Law Journal has, and we're hoping for more. And this journal would not have been possible without UNEP and CAS supporting us all the way through. They are the ones who give us the technical support, the financial support, and we're very grateful for that. So I would kindly request for our guests and our hosts to come to the front. That is Professor Patricia Kamari-Mbote, Dr. Stephanie Rothenberg, and Van Counsel Frederick Gasheru, and also our special guest, who I just got the name, Reverend Joseph Waweru. If you could join us to the front. And also Dr. Jane Wathuta, who is our Dean. Yes. So we're going to do this together. So I would kindly ask everyone to stand up. And my team at the back, I hope we're ready. So we'll start with a countdown, and the countdown will start from 10, and we'll count to 1. And once we count to 1, we'll see what will happen in front. Something will happen. But yes, and what will happen is that our guests and our host will unveil the journal in front here, and we'll be able to see what has been underneath the cloth itself. So I'll kindly request my team at the back if we can start the countdown. So the screens are, so 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much. This is the first of its kind special journal on the Beyond Formal Law. That is the role of ethics, beliefs, and values in amplifying action against plastic pollution in Africa. Thank you so much. So, thank you. The first of its kind, and we're hoping for more collaborations on the issue of plastic pollution. Thank you. Just one more. Just one request. So at the back, we have the scissors, and we're going to work together to cut the journal itself, the ribbon. So I'd kindly request if we can collaborate in So we'll cut the journal, and this is the first of its kind. This is a model of what we'll be having, and we're already in the process of printing the issue. And if you're interested, we'll present you with the issue itself. But thank you so much for the support that we've gotten from UNEP and CAS, and of course Strathmore Law Journal. This would not have been possible, and we thank you everyone for joining. One of the things that we're going to have is that you can be able to now access the journal. We'll have the QR code showing, and now the journal is live on our website. We have 7 papers that Dr. Macharia will come to speak about and give a summary on, but this is a first of its kind journal, a special journal on the Beyond Formal Law on the issues of plastic pollution in Africa. Thank you so much. We can kindly take our seats.
Thank you, thank you. If you scan that QR code, you are now able to access the articles and the publication itself. I'm still waiting for people to get off their phones and scan as I give a summary or a highlight of the issues that are covered in the journal or discussed in the journal. Tabitha, if I could have you, please. Have we all accessed? Is it, we want to hold Tabitha accountable? It's accessible. Okay. Perfect. We can all access it? Good. My task now is to highlight generally in a sentence or two which the content of the journal. I will simply say what is the thesis statement by each of the articles, what is the core argument that is being made, and I don't want to discuss it in details to entice you to now to read it through. Okay? The first paper is called The Role of Informal Laws in Tackling Plastic Crisis. Now, this paper argues that informal laws comprising of customs, religion, ethics, and other social norms hold powerful and often underutilized potential in combating plastic pollution, particularly in legally pluralistic societies. The argument made here is that while formal legal frameworks like the plastic treaty that we are hoping will come into fruition, hopefully this time the member states agree sometime in August, they are crucial, they are inherently limited in reach and enforcement, especially in communities where legal pluralism prevails. So the authors contend that informal laws wield equal or even greater influence than formal law, particularly in regulating individual and community behavior concerning plastic production, usage, and disposal. It uses examples from African customary law, religious teachings, which we've already spoken about, and ethical traditions. The authors illuminate the legitimacy, adaptability, and embeddedness of informal norms in everyday life, making them a perfect potential area for dealing with plastic pollution. These systems predate modern environmental law and remain critical in shaping sustainable behaviors, especially where formal law is inaccessible, unenforceable, and culturally dissonant. The second paper, under the title Informal Institutions, Informal Mechanisms, and Their Utility in Promotion of Environmental Protection in Africa, it argues that informal institutions, particularly indigenous and religious frameworks, hold significant underutilized potential in promoting environmental protection in Africa. The authors argue that the institutions possess long-standing knowledge systems and cultural structures that, if integrated with formal legal mechanisms, can improve governance of plastic pollution and contribute to effectiveness of regulating plastic pollution. The third paper is the role of indigenous and traditional knowledge in plastic pollution. Its thesis statement is that indigenous and traditional systems are not only essential but transformative in combating plastic pollution. The authors argue that reversing plastic crisis requires a paradigm shift, one that integrates indigenous knowledge alongside scientific and legal frameworks to co-create holistic sustainable solutions. The authors detail how indigenous knowledge systems, grounded in harmony with nature, offer sophisticated models of circular economy, waste minimization, and environmental stewardship. It draws from multiple multilateral environmental agreements, such as the Convention on Biological Diversity, to track the growing recognition of indigenous knowledge as both as a right and as a resource to be used and harnessed in dealing with environmental pollution. The fourth paper, Plastic Pollution and Our Moral Responsibility, Lessons from African Eco-Communitarianism Responsibility Approach. So the author here argues that eco-communitarian responsibility approach, and this means it's an approach that integrates environmental concerns with communal values, advocating for a balanced relationship between humans and natural world, offers a valuable lens to rethink and redefine moral responsibility towards use of plastics in Africa. This approach provides alternative insights that go beyond legal structures and emphasizes collective responsibility rooted in African communal values. The fifth paper, Social Norms and Pro-Environmental Behavior in Sub-Saharan Africa, it investigates how social norms, especially descriptive and injunctive norms, relate to pro-environmental behavior among university students in Nigeria. It seeks to fill a gap in environmental psychology research by focusing on sub-Saharan Africa, where culture and normative dynamics are unexplored, and seeks and argues that social norms significantly influence how individuals behave towards the environment. Consequently, we should invest in social norms that are pro-environment because they affect and shape individuals' behaviors. The sixth article, titled Spinning the Yarn, Exploring the Potential of Narrative Framed by Children and Youth in Shaping Ethics, Beliefs and Value Systems for Plastic Governance. The paper argues that children and youth in Africa possess the capacity to frame persuasive, non-legal narratives that can shape ethics, beliefs, and value systems in support of plastic governance. It argues that children and youth are uniquely positioned to influence society due to their perceived vulnerability, innocence, and intergenerational stake in futures, or the world in the future. And lastly, last paper, Towards Environmental Restoration and Sustainability, Embracing the African Ubuntu Philosophy. It posits that African indigenous Ubuntu philosophy offers a transformative, culturally grounded, ethical framework for addressing global environmental crisis. It argues that a complementary embrace of non-formal laws, especially those embedded in African indigenous systems such as Ubuntu, that is, I am because we are, the respect for nature and restorative justice presents a holistic model that can enrich global environmental ethics and governance. To support this, the paper uses Ubale conceptual framework, mapping out the interdependence between corporate, industry, community, and ecological levels of engagement, all anchored in Ubuntu, and illustrates how environmental stewardship must be community-led rather than committees, must be relational, must be inclusive, and suggests that ecological and corporate sustainability are deeply intertwined, especially when emphasized through or taken through the Ubuntu philosophy. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the content of the journal. It has very, very exciting papers. As we were editing and going through it, I have seen quotes from the Maori people. Those of you who have a bit of history with Australia and the Treaty of Waitangi. And one of the interesting things I read through is that the Maori people believe that food should be prepared in a certain way, grown in a certain way. And in this topic, specifically on plastics, they argued or were saying that unfortunately, because the plastics have contaminated their soils, it has taken away the idea of welcoming and eating good food. Okay, showing how much plastics change or alter our social lives, social, cultural, religious lives. If you have individuals who believe that because plastics is in the soil and plants and crops are growing from the soil, that in itself contaminates their food or what they naturally believe to be God-ordained food, then it would have a huge impact. And the idea is, again, to seek the potential of these non-formal laws for purposes of unleashing the potential they have, and combined with formal law can then, deal with the plastic menace. I am still looking at Tabitha. Okay, she's signaling to me that I can call on Okay, perfect. We wouldn't want to keep you here for long. Like we said, Dr. Stephanie has ensured that you will not eat supper today. You will simply go to sleep, which is very generous of her. Also to inform that we have 200 copies of a hard copy of the journal, again, out of the generosity of CAS. We are very grateful. Thank you very much for working with us this journey. My name is Mashalia Kagulu, and you say that as you close. At this juncture, I want to invite Professor Mbota for closing remarks, who will invite Dr. Stephanie, and Dr. Stephanie will invite the Dean. Then after that, I will call on Tabitha to tell us what to do next. From yours truly, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for agreeing to be moved from your study of laws and a bit of preaching. Hopefully that it has moved you. Otherwise, thank you very much. Happy to see you. Thank you.
People are wondering why Stephanie gets up first. She's tall. The stair is a little too high for height-challenged persons. So it's really good to have a journal launch, and also to see from the paper that the paper that was presented by Reverend Gashero, we actually have now work that should be forthcoming. I'd like to call on all of us to write. When we next call for the meeting, let's all come so that we have as many norms as possible to deal with plastic pollution. Thank you all for coming, and looking forward to working more with all of you. Now I'd like to call upon Dr. Stephanie Rothenberger from CAS. And you see she'll get here before I get home.
So, thank you all for being here and for these wonderful contributions, Patricia Kameri, Mbote, and Venerable Council for sharing your insights. I think even without having read the book, everyone can already take so much with them. Professor Kameri Bote, you mentioned in your speech that there are so many laws out there and still loads of problems. And this is actually also what keeps us working at CAS Rule of Law program. And we continue thinking about good ways to help make a contribution to the implementation of a lot of good laws that are out there. And we do that a lot through raising legal awareness among citizens about what their rights are. But this is a completely new dimension, to get stakeholders on board at an early level and to hear their voices about how to make laws better and make them acceptable and have them respected once they have been adopted. So I'm also very happy that you are here and gave us your wonderful speech, and brings me back to our conference on religious freedom and the important role that religious leaders and spiritual leaders can play in this whole approach. And thank you for mentioning the Kaya forest. I don't know who of you has been to that forest yet. I was deeply impressed. I had a tour by locals, and I had the feeling I'm walking through a cathedral, and they treat the forest as if it was their mother or their father. So that really shows there is such a lot of potential in this approach. And in fact, we have already sat together, we had a meeting beforehand with our wonderful partners, how we can continue this format. I've also consulted a lot with our committee team at CAS. And as you said, Venerable Council, in order to address or to find responses to pressing environmental challenges, it's not enough to just look at laws and treaties, but we have to find the answers in the heart of what governs people's behavior. So I think we are on the right track with this approach. And when we closed our workshop 1.5 years ago, we expressed the hope that we had planted a seed. And I think 1.5 years later, and with this journal, we can say that we have brought something to life. So maybe one day a strong tree will grow out of it. And I hope that you will all stay on this journey with us and read the book, and please spread it widely. And I would now like to hand over to the Dean of Strathmore School of Law, whom I want to thank again for hosting us here so warmly.
Okay. I'm almost the one standing between us and whatever is prepared courtesy of CAS. So I'll be really brief. I think, of course, a lot has been said and needs to be, chewed on? Chewed upon, no, anyway. We need to go back and reflect on what we have had. And I was thinking, just as a way of circling back, we can always link this event with, on one hand, the pillars of Strathmore University, one of which is research innovation, and celebrate what the Strathmore University Press, the legal part of it, is the one that's hosting us here today. And of course, the Strathmore Law Journal in particular. There's a sister publication, if I could call it that, which is the Strathmore Law Review, which is run by students. But today it's the day of SLJ, as we call it in short. So it's a big day. First of other issues to come, special issues to come. We already have some existing editions of the journal. So feel free to engage with the publications that are already there, and also to look to contribute to our publications. If you're a student, there's the Law Review. If you're a professional, the Law Journal is there as spaces to engage with authors by reading and also by producing your own work. And then if you want to know more, our research director has been here with us throughout, Dr. Lynette Osiamo. Maybe you can wave. So they feel very free to engage with you afterwards to know more about the Strathmore Law School research strategy. I mentioned at the beginning in my opening remarks that Dr. Peter Kwenjera is currently the editor-in-chief of the Law Press. So again, feel free, very free to engage with him, and maybe he'll tell you one or two things that he has lined up. Yeah? Book launches, more book launches coming, and other interesting things. And then one of our enablers also as a university is partnerships. So again, this has been an occasion to celebrate what partnerships can do. I've seen it firsthand, whether it's local or international partnerships. They take us places, those partnerships, yeah? And we grow so much, and we in turn also contribute to the growth of other institutions and individuals. So today a special appreciation of what CAS and UNEP are doing with us, and the specific contribution to this special issue of the SLJ, of the Law Journal. And then yes, we have a number of values, yeah, that Strathmore as a university stands for. One of them is ethics, precisely. We try to conduct ourselves in an ethical manner, but we also teach it, yeah? We're one of the few law schools that goes beyond the minimum prescribed ethics content in the curriculum. We do principles of ethics, we do, and then philosophical anthropology, we do legal and business ethics, and so on. So let's keep trying to walk the talk. I think today's event also has shown us that we are doing what we should be doing. Yeah, we're in the right place, doing the right thing, if I could put it that way. Of course, ultimately, our graduates and and other people connected with the school are the true demonstrators, if you want. They're the ones who can really exemplify ethical behavior beyond what we teach and what we aim to stand for. Other values include lifelong learning. I think there's been plenty of that today. Excellence, service to society. Again, this initiative is major. We've been reminded in terms of serving the society, working in jointly with the church and other stakeholders. But just concluding, I thought to myself, what would the founder of this university, he didn't come here in person to found the university, but then he played a key role in making us be what we are and what we still hope to be. That is Saint Jose Maria Escrivá. Outside this building, there's a statue of his. There's one quote from one of his books. But I asked AI, what would Saint Jose Maria say about the environment or environmental conservation? And this is what it says. And it's very true to, I think, what he actually said or would say on such an occasion. So he's the founder of Opus Dei, which is the inspiration behind this university. It says, while he didn't explicitly focus on environmental issues, he emphasized the importance of responsible stewardship of the world and its resources. Yeah? He believed Christians should sanctify their daily lives, including their work and relationships with the environment, while also recognizing the common good of creation for all people, both present and future. Yeah? So he spoke to the issues of the day very, very well. And then there's a more detailed perspective. Perhaps one that I can mention is linked to one of his fairly well-known speeches, if you want. It's titled Passionately Loving the World. So AI here reminds me that on this point of loving the world, Saint Jose Maria encouraged a love for the world and its beauty, recognizing that all creation comes from God and is directed towards Him. So I leave you with those remarks from him. I think for me they've always been an inspiration, and I hope they'll also be an inspiration for you. You can find his writings online. As you can see, AI quickly pulls them out for you. So apart from finding printed books, you can also find them online. And I think what he has to say can continue to be an inspiration for us in this specific aspect of beyond formal law and plastic pollution, but also looking forward to exploring other ways of implementing this theme in ways that can better serve society, both in the present and in the future. Thank you very much.
So now we have come to the end of the launch, and I have the privilege of guiding you where we're having our cocktails. But before that, we would like to take a picture with everyone to commemorate this day, the special launch. And so First of all is that we'll have our ushers who are behind guide us to outside the law school itself. That's where we'll take the picture itself. And then we'll head to Burudani Lounge, where we'll have cocktails, courtesy of CAS, who have graciously supported us, and of course UNEP. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I would like to say that we do have people online. Some of the others couldn't make it here in person since they're situated in Nigeria, some are in South Africa, but we do have them joining online. So just, I don't know if we warned you, we were recording this and it was live on YouTube. So yes, but of course we asked for your consent before we did so. So thank you so much for attending this launch, and we hope for many more. So I would kindly request you that as we go out, we stand outside STMB, the law school itself, and take a picture, and then we head to Burudani Lounge. If you need any assistance, we have our ushers. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence, and yeah, looking forward to delivering the physical copies to you all. Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you.